In today's video, I'm doing some coastal DIYs to use in my home decor. Here we go. For my first project, I had seen this sign at Hobby Lobby and loved it, but I really wanted to try to make one that would work in a coastal theme. So for the base of my version, I decided to use this piece of decor that I got at Dollar Tree last year. I have a few of these in my stash, and then I pulled out an old sign that I also used to use in my decor, and then I'm also going to use this sign from Dollar Tree as well. I got this because I wanted the little metal stars that were on it. You can see those are already off, but I am going to use the sign. I'm also using these wooden beads that I order from Amazon. It's a really good deal, much better than Dollar Tree or Michael's, and then some twine from my stash. I'm also going to use some chalk paint, which you'll see in a moment. So the first step was to take the canvas or painting or whatever you want to call it. It's not actually a painting, but to take the picture off of the frame, because again, I'm just going to be using the frame. So I tried to use my needle nose pliers. That didn't work very well. So then I went at it with a screwdriver. That worked better, but then I realized you actually can just tug upwards on the canvas and the little staples come out pretty easily. I think there wound up being 3 staples that I couldn't get out, but I just painted over them. Honestly, that's on the back, so you can't really see them anyway, and I really didn't want to damage the frame. This video is part of the Coastal or Summer DIY Challenge hosted by Heidi Sonbold DIY. I will link her channel in my description box as well as the playlist, and I'd love it if after you watch my video, you'd go and check out the other videos on the playlist. Please be sure to also stop by Robin Johnson DIY and Border Bananas DIY. Those are 2 brand new DIY channels coming to you today. I will link those in my description box as well. And I used my Art Minds chalk paint. This is a new to me brand. I just got it, but I do like it. I haven't found any problems with it. And I just gave the frame as well as the thankful piece of decor 2 coats of chalk paint. Then I took the USA sign and I measured where I wanted to cut this so that I would have a backing to put into the little frame. And I am going to be painting this on both sides. I will be sanding off the USA off of the back and just, doing my best to cover that up, but that won't be an issue. But the front, this blank side will be the front that's facing out in the project. I just used my carpenter square and a box cutter to score the little sign, and then I snapped it at the seam. And then I gave this little backing board 2 coats of white chalk paint. I did start painting it in the wrong direction, and you'll see I switched directions because the idea here is that I'm going to use a paint technique to make this look like fence boards. So you want to paint in the direction that you want your fence boards going. So I wanted them in this vertical direction, so that's why I changed course with my paintbrush. And once the white paint was dry, I came in with my paint technique. So what I do is I take a lid to like a sour cream container. You could take, any kind of plate or whatever it is that you use to put your paint on. And I squeezed out a darker gray color and then a dark brown. I think mine is called coffee bean. And then some black. And then a little bit of a white color. I just had this cream on hand, so I used that. It doesn't really matter. And then you want a brush with bristles, like this one that I'm using, and a little bit of water. And you dip your paintbrush in that paint, but you make sure that the colors don't blend too much. So you're kind of use like a dry brush almost. And so you can see I'm just wiping it on, but I want the different colors to show. And then I wipe the paint off with a damp rag. So I'm just putting some paint on and then wiping it off and putting some more on and wiping it off. And what this does is it creates the look of weathered wood. So because the Hobby Lobby one, they stained their frame, but I couldn't do that because I wasn't working with real wood. So I decided to do a white frame around my picture and then do weathered wood on the inside. And I thought that worked really well with the coastal theme. So here's what it looks like when it's done. And then I came in with my carpenter square again and I marked off sections of 2 inches. And then I'm going to use my carpenter square to draw the lines of the fence post because you want to make sure you have lines that make it look more like boards instead of like just a Dollar Tree sign. So I used a very thin Sharpie marker just to draw the fence board lines. And this is what it looks like when it's all done. And I did do the same to the other side eventually. So I went back and I did paint that with the same technique so that it looks like fence on both sides. Then I lost some footage, but I did use my laser transfer method. I can link a video above where I explain that a little better. But basically you print an image out on a laser printer, you print it backwards, and then you apply polyacrylic just to the side of the paper that has the printing on it, and then a little bit of polyacrylic to the object that you're applying it to. And then you apply the paper. Don't put any polyacrylic on top of it, but you use a credit card or some kind of other flat device to get the bubbles out. You let it dry at least 4 hours, but preferably overnight, which is what I did. And at this point, I was prepping to go to bed, but I just wanted to glue the little piece into the frame. So I used my Type-On glue. And again, this needs a lot of dry time. It's kind of like E6000 in that way. You don't use it on all the same things that use E6000, but it's a good wood glue. So I applied the tight bond and I stuck the little backing into the frame and I clamped it and I let it dry overnight as well. The next morning it was all dry, so I took my clamps off and then I got a little cup of water and a little rag, clean rag, and you basically just apply water to that piece of paper that you've put on with polyacrylic, and you rub until the paper comes away and it leaves behind the image. Now you do see a little bit of shininess where the polyacrylic is, and that's because I'm using satin because I got mine for really cheap at a yard sale. But if you're buying the polyacrylic, I think if you buy the matte finish, you wouldn't see as much of it. It doesn't bother me, but you know, that just is something that you might want to consider. Here's what it looks like when it's finished. Sky above, sand below. I love it. And then I had previously strung these beads from Amazon. They're just in a large, small pattern. And if you saw in the inspiration piece, there was just a little string of beads across the project, which I think just adds so much to it. So I went ahead and I just glued these on using hot glue. Then I added a little twine bow to it and I glued the whole piece to the base. Here's what it looks like finished. I just love it. I am planning to use it on top of this cabinet that I have to the left of my couch in my living room where I have some other coastal decor. And for my second coastal DIY, I'm using this frame from my stash. It was a bright green color and I painted it a pale gray that I had in my stash. And then I'm going to go ahead and take my Art Minds chalk paint again and use my same paintbrush to do a dry brush technique on the frame. I just wanted to add a little white to the frame to give more of that weathered look. To achieve the look I was going for, I just dip my paintbrush into a little bit of paint and then kind of blot it off in the center there and then wipe the paint on. Very little paint goes on, but that's what dry brushing is. And you just keep doing it until you like the way that it looks. And then I set that aside to dry and I got my USA sign again and I used the same technique with the carpenter square and the scoring knife to cut a piece that would be the correct size for the center of my frame. Then I got my burlap coffee sack. I get these at a local coffee roaster for free or just for a few dollars, usually between $1 and $3 if I have to pay for them. It's a great resource for burlap, and I just cut a piece to cover my little backing board. Then I used my Type-On glue to glue it on. The reason I use Type-On is that it dries really flat. Sometimes with hot glue you get ridges in your project and I didn't want that. And you can see here it's nice and flat. And I used my scissor and just trimmed around the edges to make it nice and neat. Then I slipped it into the frame. And don't worry, I am going to cover up the USA. And then I chose 3 shells from my stash. You can get these at the Dollar Tree. I think someone sent these to me. And I just put them on the center of the burlap in a way that I liked. And then I used my Type-On glue and my hot glue. And remember, I used both because the Type-On gives a permanent hold and the hot glue gives a quick hold. So just good to use both. And then I got this onion grass from the Dollar Tree, and it really looks like seagrass to me. I am a beach girl. I grew up at the Jersey Shore, and this always reminds me of seagrass. So I just cut off a few pieces of this, and I created a little bow with some seagrass as an embellishment for the corner. And then to cover up the ugly backside, I just added another piece of burlap. And you really can't see the red or the white through the burlap, so that's good. And I added this edge of burlap that I had cut off when I was cutting out my rectangles as the hanger on the back, and it works really well. It kind of looks like a little burlap piece of rope. Here's what this project looks like all finished up, and I am going to also be hanging this in my living room. Here's the back. It is not ugly. And that's all that I have for you today. Thanks for watching as I created coastal decor for my living room. I would love it if you'd check out Heidi Sonbold DIY as well as the playlist in my description box. And until my next video, thanks for watching.